What's up, guys? This is Gabby from the Garden Spout, and lately I've been talking to a bunch of you on the cactus groups about the Rootmaker pots and talking about the advantages. So I wanted to show you a couple plants that I have here growing in them and showing you how they work. First of all, let me start off by showing you this is what the container looks like when it's fully assembled. But when you purchase it, you get a side and a bottom. You wrap the bottom around the side and it's attached with zip ties. It takes about a minute to do it. I have some other videos showing you how I do it. I'm not going to do that right now. But what I wanted to show you was today I want to transplant this Trichocereus pachynoi crest. And come a little closer, Chris. So as you can see, it's dropped down in the soil. It's been in this container probably for 4, maybe even 5 years. The soil is compressed and it's lost a bunch of soil. There's a bunch of weeds growing in it really hard. So I want to transplant this crest. And one of the advantages of using these pots when you're transplanting delicate plants or plants that have thorns is that you don't have to turn these plants upside down to do so. Now this plant isn't so bad. A lot of you guys would say, oh, I don't even need gloves to transplant this plant. I mean, there are a fair amount of thorns. I don't want to mess with it. But even still, this is a very valuable plant to me. I don't want to have to turn it upside down and risk damaging it. And I brought another more extreme example here of, you know, when I transplant this plant, I'm not going to want to have to turn it upside down. I'm going to risk breaking it. Don't want to do that. So also what you're going to see here is I've got a tray underneath it. Now this tray is actually the bottom of this container. These containers come in, I think it's like a pint, a quart, or a liter, or a half liter, a liter, and then a gallon, 2 gallon, 3 gallon, 5 gallon. Those are the standard sizes that they have. If you want something bigger, you kind of make it yourself by using this root trapping material. The root trapper is another container that Rootmaker makes. It works a little different. Product for another video. But the root tips, actually I should explain a little bit. The root tips grow into the material and they get stuck. Because they're stuck, they're forced to branch. What I do is I take the old ones that I've used for other purposes and I turn them into bottoms. And you can see the roots are stuck here into the material. And that's what stops them from growing forward, forces them to branch. So what we do here is we have a tray, and I've drilled holes all along the bottom so it actually drains. And I put this root trapper material on it, and then I make the container whatever size I want. I'm going to show you, I'm going to add some pictures after the video of, I have some really large plants. Well, actually right over here we have a Japanese maple. You can walk a little closer to it. So this Japanese maple is in about a 100-gallon pot. It's just coming out of dormancy. So we did the same thing. We just wrapped a big piece of that Rootmaker material. We have the root trapper material under it, and we can make a container any size that we want. So anyway, let's get to it. And I'm going to open up this container. I'm going to shake off the soil and try to get a clean root ball so that we don't have any weeds going into the further growth. And also, we're going to examine and take a look at what the root system actually looks like. So let's take a look. Now, this container happens to be oversized, I think, for a plant this big. So, but we're certainly going to see. So the container may not be filled with roots. I'm not sure we're going to look at it, but what you're certainly going to see is the roots that are going to be branching. Okay, you're not going to see any roots circling along the ends. You're going to see once they get to the end. So when we take it off, at first we may not see any roots at all, and then you shake off the soil and you see how all the roots are in the inside of the container. Also at the end of this video I'll add some photos of roots of some other plants where you can see what it's doing. Like I said, you're not really seeing any circling roots. When we go like this, come a little closer, and you can see how these roots are branching. Can you see that, Chris, in the video?
Yeah.
They're fine roots. people are like, oh, my roots look great, they're thick like this. No, actually what you want is fine roots, and you want to see lots of root tips. And so let's keep exposing, pulling off some of these weeds. I'm sure the weeds have excellent root tip branching as well. But yeah, these weeds, they get to a point where I just want to get a fresh start, remove all the soil. Here. Not sure if we're looking at weeds. Well, this is obviously the cacti roots here. Can you get a look at that, Chris? Can you see how it's branching? So that's what these containers do, is they force the roots to branch. They don't allow them to grow for long distances because long roots aren't productive. The roots only grow, the plants absorb most of their water from the root tip. So having a long root system is just like having a crazy straw, that the water has to work its way from that tip to the plant, part of the plant that's actually needing the water. So we want to have a root system that's fine, lots of root tips. Let's keep getting in here. You know, like I said, this container was oversized. If it wasn't for the fact that it had dropped in the container, you know, because the soil deteriorated beneath it, probably didn't need to get transplanted. Another way we can do this is with some water. I'm trying to make it so that we can see as much as possible. Starting to lose the plant, taking away the support for it. Once I get enough soil off, I just pick up the plant and shake it off. And by the way, so I wouldn't necessarily recommend that you do this all the time. I'm doing it because the plant had really used up a lot of the soil and had dropped down in the container. And also I wanted to show you guys how easy it is to transplant. Well, in most situations, if you're going, let's say, from a 1 gallon to a 5 gallon, you're not tearing the plant apart like this. All you're doing is opening it up, placing that smaller root ball into the bigger container. This plant needed a little bit more work, in my opinion. So what you're seeing here is, this is the maximum length of the root, and then it starts branching because that's when it hit the side of the container. Look over here. You can see the roots are starting to branch. Come around this side, Chris. Or I'll turn it around. See all the roots. Ow! Look at that. So these are supposed to be thorn-proof gloves, but only on the bottom. Yikes. Okay. So I think now, let me see what happens. Oh, still got a lot of soil here and a lot of roots attached. Trying to not damage the root system too much. Get it out of there so I can wash it off and show it to you guys a little better. No question, I am ripping up some roots. But like I said, this plant needed a fresh home, a fresh start. And even the specialist of my plants, every now and again we're gonna have to do this to them. Weeds are all throughout the root system. If you don't take them out like this, I'm just constantly battling them. You know, you can like pluck them and pluck them and pluck them, and they just keep coming back because their roots are already down in the soil. So every few years, this is what it takes. See, these weeds weeds right here. It's like an ivy. See, I'm not sure what these are, but once they get in there, just plucking them out doesn't really work. Yeah, I've almost got the entire root system still attached, which is good. Just shows we got a lot of roots in here. I'm definitely breaking some. Roots on the bottom. All right. All right, let's take a closer look. So see the branches? So like I said, this plant, that container was really oversized for it. So it didn't really need to get transplanted except for the fact that it had dropped all of its soil, lost all of its soil, and had all these weeds in it. This really white root over here. Wondering if this is from a weed. Yeah, that needs to go. This is the actual root system that we have. Most of it, but I didn't tear on leaves. Here you can see the branching at the end where it hit the root trapper fabric. Alrighty, I'm gonna take a second, clean up, and then we'll transplant it again. So whenever I make the effort to take my plants down all the way down to the root system, I always wash the root systems off, try to get off every drop of that soil, and maybe move off any of those pieces of weeds. So I'll add some pictures of my carnivorous plants, which right now are perfectly weeded, but I have the same problem with those plants, that once they get the weeds deep down in there, the only way for me to get rid of them is to dig the plant out and start over fresh. So I'm gonna wash off the soil. When I do, we'll expose the root system a little better. And here's a pretty good example. Come a little closer, Chris. So you see how the root's branching. This is really heavy branching for the root system. Same over here. Now some of these roots might have happened in a non-root pruning container. First, this plant wasn't always in a root pruning container, so, but that's what it's gonna do. It's not gonna allow the roots to continue to grow. It's not gonna allow them to circle. It's gonna force them to branch. And like I said, you don't want really long, see, when I do this, I know that this is not root from my cacti. So I'm gonna pull that out. I'm seeing some more weeds in here. I really wanna get that out. I brought these gloves from Tyler over at Malik Plants, and it's really good. They only protect you on this palm side though, so you still kind of got to be careful with them. Now, this could be overkill, but like I said, I want to do everything I can to make sure that when I plant them, there's no weeds. And that way, they look better for a lot longer. They're gonna get weeds again. It's a lot easier to maintain them. Also, I'm just gonna take off any dust, mealybugs on both sides. See, look right here. This is what I've been looking for the whole time. All this effort just to make sure I didn't leave that in there. Okay, because that's a little piece of that ivy-looking plant that, if it's in there at all, you know, the plant's going to get infested with these weeds. I don't think that was a cacti root either, but it's still branching. Take a look. See the branching and the fine roots coming off of it? So while this is one of those undesirable weeds, you can see the container does the same thing to any root that touches it. This looks like a crazy job to do, and I'm just crazy enough to do it. Most people wouldn't have gone through this effort, but I want my plants to be specimen plants. In order to have a specimen, in my opinion, not only does it have to meet all the physical criteria, but you can't have any weeds. And I'm not going to use any chemicals to do that. I just do manual removal. And this doesn't get done every year, every couple of years. We're going to do that. Like I said, it also drops down in the container so far at that point. You know, if this is a shorter term crop, like, tomatoes, that would never be an issue. And so, in those cases, when you transplant from 1 to 2, 3, 5 gallon, you're never gonna tear the plant apart like that. When you have a plant that's as long term as this one, here's a taproot. You can see it's putting off branches. Didn't the first few inches because there was no root pruning happening there. Okay, but over here, you can see how it's branching. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna make the new container. And so I've got this saucer, and we drilled holes all on the bottom and on the sides of it a little bit. And I just placed this root trapper material underneath. I already explained to you guys before how the root trapper prunes the roots, and I'll trim that off later. Alrighty. Get the zip ties and put this thing together. So I actually have a couple of pieces joined together here. You can buy it in a roll, or sometimes I just take some used 5 gallon ones and I join them together. And what you can see here is we got like 1.5 5 gallon pots, I think, that I used to make this container. Then I kind of just size it out like this. That's where I want it to be. So now, just put the zip ties in again. When I'm making a big container like this, one of the homemade versions, and particularly one that I'm putting one of my most prized plants, I always go ahead and add a few more zip ties. Like those 2 over there was probably enough, but I'm gonna add 1 more over here. There you have it. And I cut these things off afterwards so it's not so ugly. Place it down in there. Now we're going to shovel in some soil. I always plant in bone dry soil. This is stuff that we pre-mix some organic fertilizer in it. When I say I always plant in bone dry soil, when I'm planting cacti, San Pedro. The cacti roots just don't grow as prolific as like a tomato plant or something like that really benefit from the really large ones. I like to put them in these big plants, mostly big containers, mostly to support them. You put them in a small container, they want to just take the container and fall over. Like this big one over here, yeah, it could be growing in a 3 or a 5 gallon pot, but it's going to be really top heavy and want to fall over. So I like to plant these big heavy ones in bigger containers. So generally just give it a little, or go like this, and you can see these dimples are getting filled with the soil. You see that, Chris? So here, we don't have any soil, and here, they're full. So all these dimples are full. And what those dimples do is they direct the root to the air hole and force the roots to branch. So when the root hits that air hole, it can't turn around. Because they're facing downwards, the root can't turn around and go up to escape as easily. And so that's how these things are actually directing the roots to the air hole and forcing them to prune. Right now I got a couple of stakes, I got a couple of stones, and I got some soil in a 5-gallon bucket, or excuse me, Rootmaker container, that hopefully I can do this all by myself. I dug a little hole for the root system. Just gonna drop it down in there. It's still a little bit sensitive work, trying to avoid these thorns. I'm just trying to drop some soil down to cover the roots that are already down in there. Holding the plant up a little bit. I don't want it to drop too much down in the soil. Let's see. Get some soil under it so that it sits higher. Part of the reason why I like using dry soil is because it just falls into place so easily. And then, if I want to pick the plant up a little bit to adjust it, it's not hurting it. I'm just going to place some rocks around the base. Not the prettiest rocks, but what I have right now. Just something to keep this thing from moving around too much. First, drop some stakes into it too. And that's it. That's how we transplant into a Rootbuilder container, showing the advantages of, well, I mean, I guess I really manhandled the plant a little bit trying to get all the weeds off, but you see that you wouldn't have to do that if all you were looking to do was shift up in size. So, hope you found this video informative. If you have any questions, just hit me up in the comments.